What is going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 80 of the Club and Sub podcast. We are slowly creeping up to number 100. A couple more months and we're going to be there. This weekend, we got Johnny Walker versus Jamal Hill. Um, pretty weak fight card, if I do say so myself. As usual, you got me, John at MMA Fox, Luke at SWR underscore betting, Lags at Danny Lags. Yeah, guys, if you like the show, please drop a like and subscribe. Luke, what are your thoughts about this card? Anything in particular? Anything you're really like dying to see here?
Not really. I don't think it's great. Obviously, I think the people and my boy Tommy Eustace in the chat wants to hear us talk about it, at least off the top with Bobby Green. So we might have to get some of your boys' thoughts on that recent announcement. But no, I think there are some fun fights on the card, but it's nothing that's gonna blow your hair back.
Lags, anything here for you? That you think
Yeah, kind of similar. Kind of similarly. I mean, the main event, obviously, but I mean, outside of that, nothing really.
So, we can talk Bobby Green briefly. I don't really like that Lags is rocking a Russian beard right now.
It is what it is.
Inshallah, Makachev.
But yeah, let's talk about it real quick. I know Sean and Tajik are running their spaces, so I mean, maybe we give some of the people over there a chance to get in here. I think it's pretty cool. Bobby's obviously in shape. He just had a fight. I think stylistically, he's one of the few guys who's going to be pretty reliable to not just get stuck on bottom all fight. So it'll be interesting. Luke, you think anything about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I was messing in the group chat thinking Islam by points, but with the 5-round dynamic, I think it's also interesting too. Yeah, Bobby's going to pose some definite threats to him that I think he hasn't really seen before in terms of durability, activity, difficult to hold down. So yeah, I definitely think it's an interesting fill-in.
Lags, how about you?
And not to mention, it's probably going to be the most output he's going to see on the feet for as long as it stays on the feet. So I mean, yeah, plus 600, it's kind of an auto bet on Bobby.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I kind of think, I obviously haven't taped it, but like before taping it, I kind of think like Islam minus 200 would probably be appropriate, just knowing Bobby's, grappling acumen. Plus, he's going to offer threats that Islam really hasn't seen on the feet before. So yeah, I mean, I'll almost certainly bet it plus 600. I'm pretty familiar with both of their games, but yeah. So with that, let's get into it. We got a dumpster fire here to get through. It's an interesting one. There aren't too many fights, fortunately. Could you imagine if they saddled us with 15 fights on this card? Fuck. But yeah, first fight of the night, we got Jesse Strader, Chad and Halliger. I bet Jesse Strader, candidly, very, very small, half a unit. To be honest, like, I think I said this to both of you when we were texting about it. This might be the lowest level men's fight in the history of the UFC. Like, at least post like the UFC becoming modern and people actually training in MMA, like in the last decade. I mean, Chad and Helliger he's tiny. He's too small for the division, to be honest with you. He has not much defense standing. He is a pretty poor grappler. He does have some sharp striking. He's got decent leg kicks. He seems reasonably dangerous. Dude's got a 65-inch reach, though. That's not really cutting it here. And then on the other side, you have Jesse Strader, who is candidly a dumpster fire. Jesse Strader has no defense. He literally just wings hooks. He'll try to wrestle once in a while. Like, I think he could get a takedown or two here. But, Luke, you mentioned it to me. Like, he leaves so much space. There's really not much of a chance he controls in Helliger, all likelihood. I guess for me, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think Chad's probably more skilled. But Chad's 35 years old. Hasn't really displayed any significant UFC level skills. I just think it's kind of a weird fight where, yeah, I have no problem with Chad as a small favorite, but it's very low level. Strader, this is a big step down from the guy Strader's been fighting. He almost finished Marcelo Rojo regionally. I just think it's, probably going to be a competitive fight. Strader's going to have a chance to put him out. I don't really see how Helliger can be minus 290 against anyone in the UFC. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, not aside for me. I just kind of, to a lot of your points, I don't value the game of Strader really at all. To your point, I think he's just kind of got big winging hooks. I don't think his gas is very good. I don't think his wrestling is very good. His defense sucks. To your point, I don't think Helliger's anything special, but I've at least seen some more process in his game. I think he's tighter, he's crisper, he's faster. I do think he has some pop. And I think that's ultimately what puts Strader down again. He's gotten flatlined in his last two losses. and in slowing down. I think that's kind of when Hellinger puts it on him and puts him out. But at the same time, Jesse's going to go forward and try to maximize his win condition. So him, going out there and knocking out Hellinger, to your point, I don't think it would be shocking either. I think violence actually is a pretty decent route in this fight. Under 2.5, -150, in what should be a high action fight. Both guys, large finish equity in their W's, have been finished in the majority of their pro losses. Obviously, all for Strader. I think the majority for Hellinger as well. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if Strader dived into like a guillotine or something like that if he's tired. So, no side for me, but I think violence is a decent look.
Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I echo Luke's sentiments as well. I actually have the under as well. Unit on the under 2.5 -125. Yeah, I think both these guys are going to stand and bang, to be honest. And both of them are defensively void enough that either could catch another. But I think Chad's likely to put out Strader here.
Yeah, that's fair. Moving on, we got a pretty wild fight. It could be fun, actually. We had Diana Belbita. She's coming back, taking on Gloria DePaula here. DePaula trying to keep her job. Luke, what do you think's going to happen here?
Yeah, it's a weird one because I think you can definitely make arguments for both girls based on the line too. But what I will say for Belbita, despite her not being technical really in any stretch of the imagination, it is a low-level WMMA fight, and output, volume, aggression is king at this level. And I think that's something that she brings, and it's important to note too. She's a very big 115. Like, I think she would hold her own, to be honest, at 125 just fine, like over at least regionally, maybe not in the UFC. But at 115, she's a very big girl, especially in relation to this level. And I think she's going to bring a type of volume and pressure that DePaula really hasn't seen much. You could say that with Bays, but the problem with that was that the fight just didn't really play out long enough for us to know really what happened. The KO obviously happened, but it was kind of a funky sequence. The girl stood up. She got kicked in the face. So it's like, I can't take like too much away from DePaula in that scenario, but I mean, even regionally, we always go back to that DePadua fight. Like, DePadua just came forward and just hit her consistently, and the girl backs up in straight lines. And DePadua was tiny too. Like, I mean, Belbita's a big girl, so I think she honestly has her way with DePaula. I think DePaula is actually probably more like technical, but I still haven't seen her be able to deal with any sort of effective pressure at all. So I think it's pretty much one-way traffic on the feet for Belbita. The concern with Belbita is that she's gotten stuck in the clinch in multiple fights, and we've seen Gloria DePaula have a good amount of success there. So that's where my main concern for Belbita is, coupled with the ground. But at the same time, DePaula doesn't really wrestle, and based on the dynamic of her primarily dropping minutes and rounds on bottom, I think she's not going to be out here proactively wrestling or doing that. Same with Belbita. I don't think she will. She did against JoJo, which was stupid. Homegirl JoJo armbar for the W. But at the end of the day, I think both girls are going to give each other the general type of fights that they need to succeed. I think it's DePaula all day in the clinch, Belbita all day at space. So it's a low-level fight, but I think, at around pick'em, I do think the slight steam towards Belbita makes sense because in this archetype of a fight, volume, aggression, output is king, and that's what Belbita has, coupled with durability and power at the weight class.
Alags, what do you think?
It's funny, we're going from like the lowest men's fight, and now we have like one of the lower-level women's fights. But yeah, I mean, I echo Luke's sentiments here again as well. Like, I think Belbita's slight favorite makes sense just off the output and the aggression, but like, again, it's like, it's low level. I don't really trust her fight IQ either. So it's like, again, like flip a coin. Like, I think the odds are pretty accurate here.
Yeah. I have like moderate interest in Belbita. I'm still debating if I want to play her. I was really hoping she'd move to like decent sized dog money here. I just really don't rate DePaula at all. If I'm being honest, I bet Ginny Fry against her. You look back and Luke, you touched on it, but the Isabel DePadua fight, DePadua is awful, and that was not like that long ago. And I mean, it was just a bad showing against a girl who was willing to go forward against DePaula there. Even well, like you said, the bias fight's not that relevant. At the Contender Series, that girl Macias was just, had no business being on that show, to be honest. And it's like Belbita.
She's a judo girl who can't strike too.
Right. Exactly. Like it was pretty much exactly, what the perfect matchup for GDP was. And now you have Belbita who, like, Yeah, she's not a great grappler. Yeah, she's kind of a defensive mess, but she's tough as nails and she's very aggressive. Like she throws a lot of strikes. She goes forward. She's reasonably accurate, and it's like, I hear people saying, and I hear DePaula saying she's worked on her grappling, but it's like, honestly, I know, we tend to operate under this assumption that it's like, oh, bad grappler, she'll get held down by anybody. It's like, no, it doesn't really work like that. If I fight if I go fight Carlos Condit and I take Carlos Condit down, he's gonna get up pretty easily. It's like just because she's a bad grappler doesn't mean you're the kind of grappler that can hold her down. Like Larry DePaula working on her ground game for 2 months tells me like nothing. I mean, she's 5-4, but Beat is way more experienced. She's way more aggressive. I think, if she walks into the pocket, she's just gonna play pinball with her head. I agree with you, Luke. A big fear is her kind of getting stuck in the clinch here. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't decided what to do with it because it's like playing a striking fight in WMMA, especially against a longer fighter, is not the most fun thing in the world. But I lean Belbita pretty strongly here. Moving on, though, we have a fun one. We got Chaz Skelly. He's taking on Mark Stregel. Bags, any thoughts here?
This is a weird one, I think, really, to be honest. Like one of the weirder fights on the card. It's kind of, I guess, the big question is like, where is Chaz at really in his career? So it's like, it's tough to really lay this kind of number with him, knowing the concerns, the layoff and whatnot. But I don't know. I think there's just going to be a dicey fight that probably finishes, to be honest with you. Like I like the unders here, but no real strong conviction at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I kind of like the under. Like I've seen some like pretty sharp people playing Striegel, and I do see the angle, I guess, to a degree. Skelly's not a great athlete. He's old. He's kind of gassy. But like Mark Striegel is terrible. Like he is not a UFC level fighter. He is also quite gassy. He's not a 45er really. He's about the size of a 35er. He's got decent wrestling, but he doesn't really have much of a process on the mat. He's very easy to reverse. Skelly's going to be bigger than him. He's going to be stronger than him. Like maybe Striegel can like take his head off at range, but I think Skelly, despite being defensively void, is probably the better striker. I don't know. I kind of think Skelly's got him covered. If Striegel was like a cardio beast, I'd be inclined to take the stab, but he's not. And I kind of just think it looks a lot like the Jordan Griffin fight, except Jordan Griffin's a better grappler than Striegel is. Like I kind of just think Striegel's going to try to initiate the grappling here, and Skelly's going to dominate him. But to your point, Lags, like no one even knows what Skelly's been doing. Apparently, he's a full-time roofer now. So Chad's on a 2-year layoff, being old and unathletic. Do I want to lay minus 200? Not really. If I was going to play something, it would be the under. Luke, what do you think?
It's also apparently the guy's retirement fight too.
Yeah,
right.
Sounds like he's hanging up the gloves here. So it's one of those, I guess, quasi-narrative fights because I do think Skelly is the more proven, battle-tested grappler, but he's also one of those guys in a lot of ways to our homeboy Tim Elliott, where he will put himself in some bad spots to try to get into some good spots. So I think we could see some fun exchanges on the ground here, and if it's like both guys just concede shit and they just decide to stand and strike. I don't really know if Chaz Skelly is also minus 200 in that, to be completely honest. So you throw all that into the soup with him being older, 2.5-year layoff. I guess I kind of understand the takes on Striegel, but I still don't really know what to make of him because he's beaten a bunch of bombs over in Japan. So it doesn't really mean much, where I've seen Skelly actually go toe-to-toe and beat some pretty good grapplers in there to boot. So yeah, it's just a gigantic pass for me. I guess I would say Striegels maybe the side, but I don't know. I think Skelly could maybe. I think Skelly could absolutely big brother him too. So, pass for me.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we got another interesting fight that I think you might have a play on, Luke. We got Jessica Rose Clark. She's taking on Stephanie Egger. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I like Jess here. Going into it, I didn't think too much of it. And it's ironic because I've been a proponent actually kind of both girls in the capacities that they've like been at. I think Clark's turned a bit of a corner. I played her in her last fight against Edwards closer to evens. I played Egger closer to evens against Young in her last fight, but I think the levels in the striking in the fight are pretty massive, to be completely honest. Like Egger hasn't fought even a remote UFC caliber striker. The last girl she fought was terrible. Will be out of the UFC within a year if she even gets another fight. to be completely honest. And what she's faced on the regionals hasn't been pretty at all. Just kickboxing background. She's going to go forward. She's going to land strikes. She's much more technical. I think she's shown more physical components also in recent years. So I think that gives a lot of credence to Jess against a girl in Egger who's just going to block punches with her face. She's very uncomfortable, in my opinion, at space. So it's one-way traffic for Jess. And I think the slight concern for Jess is Egger is the bigger girl here, judo background. She's strong from those body locks. But really, after going back and watching tape, I think she has to kind of get those takedowns closer to the cage. And with that, even if she does get Jess down, I think Jess is going to be able to work back up, wall walk, dig. And we even saw some components of that in the Alpar fight for Jess as well. And the thing with these judo players is that they're not good on bottom at all. Like, because it's just the base of judo. Like, you throw someone, ippon, you win. There's no, like, it's not jujitsu. So there's no back play, there in judo at all. So we did just see in the debut against Tracy Cortez, who is a decent wrestler, but she got taken down 3 times and controlled for over 10 minutes. And I do think Jess is a quasi underrated wrestler. Some people might remember some earlier components, but they were also against better girls. I think she could just take this girl down and do the same thing she did to Jocelyn Edwards, if not pound her out. So honestly, I think it's one-way traffic on Jess this week. I think she can probably knock her out, to be honest, just because I haven't seen her face that caliber of striking, in my opinion. I think Jess could wrestle her. I think Egger's reliant on having to squeak a close split with 3 to 4 takedowns against the cage, up, down, mat return type of thing. I don't think it's high percentage. I think Jess is 70 to 75%.
Yeah, fair. Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, echo similar thoughts as well here. I actually was listening to an interview of hers right before we came on the pod, and she was saying, in her last fight, she had to use her B game plan, use the grappling against Jocelyn because she was an A striker. And now she said for this fight coming in, she knows that Egger's, a black belt judoka, so she's going to use her A game plan and come out here and strike this whole time. So that's always good news there as well. But yeah, I mean, similar to you, I just think that I don't really see like a huge win equity for Egger outside of, like you said, a couple takedowns here and there, but it's like, the volume edge is all JRC on the feet. She can obviously land takedowns here whenever. So, yeah, minus 180, minus 185, I think it's still a solid line for JRC.
Yeah, I wasn't going to play it, but the line is starting to creep down.
It's still coming in.
I'm seeing like 75s out there now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's starting to get pretty interesting. Honestly, like, I bet Egger in her first 2 fights in the UFC. And to be honest, to bet against Cortez is one of the worst bets I've ever made in my life. And just like putting it out there, like Cortez she's a decent grappler. I say good, but she's not like an elite wrestler by any means. Like this isn't Tatiana Suarez, And
she's a better wrestler than grappler.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. But even as a wrestler, she's good, but she's not like Tatiana Suarez. She's not like the greatest wrestler we've ever seen, out here. And she really ripped through Egger. Last fight, and I get it, people are kind of higher on Egger after the fight with Shada Young, but Shada Young is horrible, man. Like that was just like, I have a girl that can't keep distance who also can't grapple against someone who's going to go and grab her and put her on the mat. Okay, that's pretty easy. Here it's like, Luke, you touched on all of the important stuff here. It's just like, yeah, JRC's got her covered on the feet. The real question is, can Egger hit takedowns and hold her down? But like, how many girls have like ever held down Jessica Rose Clark in her career? Like anybody, really? Not really. And so it's like, I guess there is the possibility, because Egger is a big woman, that, maybe she can just hoss her around in the clinch, hold her down and out-muscle her. It's live, it's in play, but, like, I don't think it's very high percentage. And, like, to your point, Lags, one of my big takeaways from the Edwards fight, and I've seen a lot of people criticize her for it, and she didn't look, like, overly impressive in that fight, if we're being honest. She didn't really throw ground and pound, try to pass. But, like, if you're telling me I can bet on a fighter who's going to do exactly what their opponent can't do, I want to bet on that fighter, Like, whatever you think about the performance, she looked -5, -600 in that fight,
And people were shitting on her for that performance too, which was crazy. People are like, fuck this. I'm like, what are you talking about? She was -125, and she emasculated that woman.
It was like a clear 30-27 with like 11 minutes of control. Like what else do you want from someone you're betting on, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't like I heard, actually I had the same concerns when I didn't bet JRC against Alpar. It was like, oh, what if Alpar can just muscle her and take her down? But she had no issues there. JRC's pretty strong. She's pretty athletic. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you, Luke. Like I'm always concerned about laying WMMA chalk, but this is getting to a point where this is just kind of absurd, to be completely honest. So I'm probably going to end up on the JRC side of things. Moving on, we have like my main event of the evening. Personally, we got Gabriel Benitez taking on David Onama. It's funny because like I was up late at night when I first started taping this, and I watched the Onama fight, and I think I messaged you guys. I was like, "Fuck, I can't bet Benitez here. Like Onama's gonna swarm him the way Billy did." But then like I went back and like I rewatched the Billy fight. And I did a pretty deep tape on it. Honestly, I don't really get why people are betting David Onama as a favorite in the spot. I don't really understand why he's a favorite. Look, people are conflating a competitive performance on the feet with Mason Jones for him having like a competitive fight with like a top 15, 20 guy at lightweight. That's how he's being lined as a top 30 fighter, really. And that's just not really what it was. First of all, yeah, he was a split decision. But even there, Mason Jones is not much of a striker. He has no defense. He has almost no technique. And they were like competitive on the feet, like they were both banging back and forth. Obviously, he's got a big grappling hold, but now it's like, okay, I get it. He's athletic. He has high output, whatever. Now he's fighting Gabriel Benitez. The level in the striking difference and just the experience level in general is so massively in favor of Benitez. Like, it almost can't be understated. Like, could Onama clip him? I guess. But I kind of think people's minds are being too colored by the Billy Q fight. Like, Billy Q hits fucking hard. That he can crack, the only other guy to put him out, I mean, he got put up by a head kick by Feely and a huge right by Sadiq Yusuf, who's a huge hitter. And even, the Billy Q fight, he was like visibly concussed 2 minutes into that fight, and he actually made a decent fight of it. He hurt Billy a couple times. He knocked him down in round 3. But just looking at the technique, Gabe actually can set things up. He can do different stuff. He can lure you in and walk you onto shots. Onama is really walking into the pocket flat-footed with his chin in the air and looking to brawl with you. Benitez will exchange, but he's not going to sit there to see who has the better chin. He can actually move off the center line, set things up. And I kind of look at this, it's like, I don't think Onama has the requisite cage work to be able to corner Benitez very easily. And if that's the case, Benitez is just going to touch him up at will. And like, if Onama actually tries to grapple him here, it's probably not. I kind of think it's going to go very badly for him, and he probably ends up in worse positions because I don't really rate Onama's grappling. And like, while Benitez isn't going to proactively grapple offensively, defensively he's very good. And once he actually gets in a position like a submission position, he's not bad either. I just think Benitez is better everywhere this fight goes. I think the big takeaway here is, Onama's super durable, and it's like, I mean, he got hurt twice by Jones, and Benitez is a pretty big hitter at featherweight. He has something like 6 or 7 knockdowns in the UFC. I don't really think that there's more finishing equity on the side of things here. And so, yeah, I mean, this is kind of just, for me, it's a classic spot I like to back. It's a guy who's being probably overhyped by the market against a proven veteran with a bunch of UFC fights who's off a bad loss, and now he's being priced as an underdog here. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I think the price should be at bare minimum flipped. Frankly, I think, without the Jones fight, like if this was Onama's debut and it was after Benitez fought James, you'd probably see like Benitez minus 250, to be honest. That's not where I'd cap it, but that's probably what the line would be. It just makes no sense for me. It's a classic recency bias spot. Like if you're betting David Onama, I guess you're just hoping he's going to Kennedy and Nzechukwu him and just like walk through all his shots and put him out. I don't know. I don't get it. Benitez should be a favorite here. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. Like Warrior AMG put out a tweet earlier today that I quote tweeted about, the problems with MMA betting and recency bias and whatnot. Like, why do people overreact to early the last fight or whatever? And I put out an example of, Agapova when she fought Dobson or whatever, obviously minus 1,400 favorite, drops it. She's a plus 157 dog to Mazo. looks great. She's now a minus 200 favorite to Morose. So it's just so funny how these things swing. And granted, we could be completely wrong here. To your point,
Yeah.
John, I am also on Benitez here, but I feel like it's somewhat similar in a similar dynamic here, where it's like the guy's beating nothing but cans on the regionals. I think
Yeah.
anybody, whether you're betting Onama or not, I would hope that you would concede that point that he's beaten absolutely nobody. But
They're
he
beating
went down,
themselves in most of those fights.
yeah, and he fights a guy in Jones and did look better and outperformed his general price tag. I have to give him credit there, but Mason Jones blocks punches with his face. And if you actually go back and watch Mason Jones's Cage Warriors run, Mason Jones got hit a shitload in Cage Warriors as well. So I think that's interesting to note. It's just like whether Benitez is truly regressing or not is kind of the question. But I do think there is some market overcorrection here where people look at the Billy Q fight. The guy's done. He's got nothing left. Onama outperformed his price tag in his last fight, despite losing, hot new prospect, blah, 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 blah. It's like, but does that warrant him being a minus 160 favorite over Gabriel Benitez? I don't think so. I don't think so. We could be categorically wrong and look like jackasses, but it's like, I personally don't see it. To your point, John, the guy defends distance strikes in the aggregate at like 65 or 66%, which is really good over a long sample size. People see him. Yeah, he's got blasted, head kick, Feely, knocked out by Sadiq Youssef, who's probably one of the bigger hitters at 145, to be honest. Billy Q, crazy pace, good, decent wrestler, and a pretty good black belt, if we're being completely honest, which David Adama is not a good grappler. I think there's some context there within relation to this matchup. To be honest, and Benitez has actually shown historically a pretty good get-up game. So I just don't really understand the line completely.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he could go for it. He could throw a ton of volume. That has given Benitez some issues, but it's like, should he be minus 160 over Gabriel Benitez? I'm not convinced. I played Benitez. I didn't play it as heavy as you, John, personally, but I do think he is worth a play at plus money because I just think it's one of these classic spots of market overcorrection, in my opinion.
It is, and like to like your point, like me, I'm like pretty classic example. I try to take advantage of recency bias, and like I messaged you guys right after I taped the first fight, and I was like, oh, it's so easy in your head to picture something that's not reality and out of context. You just got to level yourself sometimes. Lags, what's your take on it?
Not as strongly as either of you two.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Don't you say Onama.
No. But I mean, to me, it's just kind of like one of those like pass and like learn type of spots. Like it's like I like Onama as a prospect. Like he's okay. Don't get me wrong. Like he's hits hard, decent volumes. Like seems like a decent fighter. But like again, it's Gabriel Benitez. How are you lining him? 60-ish%. So it's just one of those pass fights for me. But I don't hate the spots at all.
Yeah, I think you're right. And like it's weird because Onama's a guy I feel like we might look back on in a year or two and be like, fuck, I wish he had gotten 5 or 6 more fights regionally because he is so undeveloped. But yeah, we'll see. Moving on, Luke. I don't know. Did you? I didn't tape this. Barrio Batista, Jay Perrin, Lags. Did you tape it? Luke, have you looked at it?
Yeah, I did. I watched a decent amount on the guy. I think he's serviceable, but I think he's pretty slow to be completely honest. I think the speed of Bautista is going to give him some pretty big issues. Yeah, he's just kind of one of your meat and potatoes type of guys. I don't think he presents any significant issues to Bautista, in my opinion. The problem with Bautista is that, not necessarily like, your 5-6 significant strikes landed per minute, not like a crazy power threat, not a guy who's going to go out there and shoot 6 takedowns per 15 minutes or whatever. So that's kind of always the issue with Bautista, but it's definitely a more favorable stylistic matchup than he was drawing previously. So I think it's a good spot for Bautista. I just think the guy's kind of a stick in the mud, and it's more so for me once again with the speed, the footwork. that I think is going to give Perron a lot of troubles. Does Bautista put him out? I think he honestly does. I'm not convinced 100%, but I don't think Perron presents, any significant wrestling or grappling issues to give Bautista troubles or high output pace that would give Bautista significant troubles either.
Yeah, agreed. Moving on, we got Christian Rodriguez. He's coming off from Dana White's Contender Series, stepping in on short notice for Austin Lingo. He's taking on Jonathan Pierce. Lags, what's your thought?
Haven't gotten a chance to look at Chris Rodriguez at all, to be honest with you.
Okay. Ilmac, real quick in the chat. We did briefly talk about Islam and Bobby Green at the start of the show, if you want to go back there. But yeah, this is pretty frustrating for me. So I had I bet MGM had Jonathan Pierce at minus 225 when the rest of the market had him at minus 350 against Austin Lingo, and I emptied the clip on it, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to hold all of it, but it's like the market's $1.50 behind. I could literally just arb a lot of this into a free roll, and then obviously that fight got canceled, so that was a bummer. So we have this fight. I was kind of hoping that Rodriguez, being undefeated, having a fairly impressive performance on Contenders, that he would end up getting kind of the Contenders treatment and getting lined closer than he should be against Pierce here. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's the way it went down. It's minus 330 for Pierce. I guess looking at his fight, I'm a big Pierce fan. Probably one of the worst cancellations that I received during the first year of COVID was that I had 4 units on Pierce plus 400 against Sean Woodson. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever get that line again. Look, Pierce has his issues. I still worry badly about his defense. I kind of think, one of these days he's just going to step into an overhand right and get put out cold. Kind of like what happened in the Joe Lauzon fight. I kind of feel safe saying now he probably beats Lauzon at a super high clip after seeing what he's been since that fight. But aside from that, Pierce is exactly the kind of guy you like to back, right? Very, very high output. Wrestles a lot, lands a lot of strikes, lands a lot of takedowns. Honestly, his wrestling is a lot better than I gave him credit for. Just kind of rewatching some of the takedowns he's hitting against Samuel Morales. So a lot of diversity to what he's trying to do. On top, he has good ground and pound. He's got a decent submission game. He's a big guy for the weight class. Just a guy that, if a fight goes to decision, he's going to be a very strong favorite to win against most people. And Christian Rodriguez, look, he's a decent striker. There's not a whole lot I can make out of his game. He beat Tracy Cortez's brother on Contender Series. He looked impressive, but, the little Cortez did not look very good. So I don't know what to take of it. He's only fought bombs other than that. He's a bantamweight naturally, and now he's coming up on short notice here to fight Pierce at 45, who's a big 45er. To be honest, there's a part of me that kind of thinks Pierce at minus 330 might actually be value. Am I going to lay it? No, just because, the concerns about Pierce's tendency to let people punch him directly in the face if he's in the pocket still concern me, even though he seems pretty durable. But I do kind of think the under at 2.5 at minus 150 isn't bad, to be honest. Pierce is way bigger than this dude, and Pierce is kind of exactly the guy you want to fight for unders. He keeps a super high pace, and he's always looking to finish. And if in the event he loses, it's probably going to be by knockout. So I don't know. I haven't played it yet, but I'm thinking about it. Luke, how about you?
Honestly, I don't really hate the Rodriguez kid. I'm not playing him or anything.
He's not horrible.
But from what I've seen on tape, I think his boxing is pretty good. He's shown some decent wrestling components. He's durable. He moves well. But to your point, short notice, up a weight class, fighting a big guy, the better wrestler, the better striker, in my opinion, too. So am I trying to lay this price on Pierce? Absolutely not. At the same time, in my opinion, because like I said, I don't think this is like a cakewalk necessarily for Pierce, because I honestly don't think the kid's that bad.
No,
to be honest,
he's looked okay. Yeah.
He also appears to be durable, but to your point, it's like he hasn't fought a high strength competition. So it's like, am I willing to lay the under? I don't really know, because I don't know how he deals necessarily with that kind of pressure from a bigger guy. I think he could deal with it well. Maybe he doesn't, but it's just a big pass for me personally. I think Pierce should win. I think it's a decent spot for him. But honestly, I really don't hate this kid. I hope he gets another crack in the UFC, because I think he's decent.
Yeah, it's kind of a shitty spot to throw a debutante in who had a pretty good performance on Contenders, to be completely honest with you. It's kind of the
Up
spot
a
where your
weight
manager
class
says,
too.
no, let's take another fight or two against bums on the regional scene and then get the call, not go get lit up by Jonathan Pierce for 3 rounds. But yeah, moving on. I'm going to stick with you here, Luke. You got Joaquin Buckley taking on Abdul Razakah Hassan. What are your thoughts?
Obviously, no in-depth breakdown here. Alhassan, round one power puncher. All 11 of his pro wins have come in the first round via KO. He's fought the same way his entire career. He's going to go out there and chuck heat, try to get guys out of there. I think it comes down to whether Buckley decides to oblige him in that, or he decides to put on his singlet and take a smart path and wrestle. Despite Buckley, historically not being some powerhouse wrestler or any significant grappling threat, I think it's a clear path in the fight. If he wants to swing, I think it's just stupid, to be honest. I think he could definitely put out Alhassan, but would just be dumb in doing so. I have heard some merit to Alhassan. He has went out to elevation. So maybe we do see actually a different Alhassan in this fight. You never know. Maybe Trevor Whitman's got him on some type of different camp and he's not going to go out there and go life or death. And we see a different Alhassan, but that's yet to be shown over a large sample size. So my take generally is that Alhassan has 5 minutes. Buckley has 15 minutes to win this fight, which is why he should be favored. People are saying that Buckley being minus 150 is stupid. It's like I don't know what your argument is why he shouldn't be. You're banking on a guy with 1 round of win equity, and I'm about to actually put up my prop article tomorrow night. But Alhassan round one plus 400. It's like plus 135 money line, wins every fight in the first round in his entire pro career. He's 135 on the money line, plus 400 in round one. It's like I don't get it. If you're going to play Alhassan, play him by round one. If you've been playing him by round one, you have made money because I think he's like evens in the UFC. So you've made money betting him that way. I don't understand Alhassan money line bets because he hasn't proven he can win a fight out of 5 minutes. So that's my take.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, no bet here, but I kind of just think gut feeling tells me that the under 1.5 probably ends up looking like a sharp take here, just because I think Buckley is going to oblige him in that stand-up affair, and somebody's just going to get knocked out early here in the first round. But yeah, I think to Luke's point as well, Alhassan by KO in the first round is plus 450. Just I would rather free roll that on Alhassan instead of the money line.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I have this suspicion that Buckley is value, if I'm being honest. Like I think Buckley has the tools to fight a fairly safe fight and win this fight fairly easily, both wrestling, which I don't expect he'll do just because he debuted against Kevin Holland and decided that, brawling with Kevin Holland was the move. But he seemed to have learned since then. Like, I actually think Buckley's kind of a little underrated. For a guy as muscle strapped as he is, he's got pretty good cardio. He's got pretty good output. And while some might hold the Arroyo fight against him a bit because he did start very, very slow in that fight, he's played a pretty safe game there. And I kind of think Arroyo had a lot more tools to bother him at long range than Alhassan does. Like, if he just doesn't stand in front of Alhassan, he's not going to get, put out here. I actually did make a bet here. DraftKings, if anybody has it, has decision only for Buckley at minus 125, which seems absolutely insane to me. I think I smashed it. I think that's like more like minus 300.
Mortgage, that's a mortgage play, Sean.
Yeah, dude.
It's college fund.
Dude, like how is that possible, right? Like that I couldn't believe it when I found it. Like what does an Alhassan decision look like? That's
there isn't any.
yeah. Like I don't know. I think I like Buckley here, but I have that play. I might just sit on it. Like, it's gonna feel really shitty if I lay minus 145 and he just gets nuked in the first exchange, So it's like whatever.
I would just sit on that and just live bet after the first round. Honestly.
Yeah, I think that's not bad. But I don't even like Buckley Alhassan since he came back has looked horrendous. Yeah, even like he had a head kick win against Chirico. That's it. Every other moment of every other fight he has been in since he came back has been awful. You know,
There was
so
only like 1 minute in that fight too. It wasn't even
yeah,
like extended in the first. And what was it, like 1 minute or something? Like it
yeah,
wasn't.
and I don't know what you guys think, but like I really thought even in his fight with Lizez, it wasn't even just Lizez's durability. His shots just didn't seem to be as fast when he was getting them off early. I just don't really think he's the same guy. He's not young. He wasn't training for a couple of years. You know, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of think this is the end for Razak. You know, he was fun while we had him, but I kind of think Buckley handles him here. And I like Buckley. You know, I think he's probably better than he gets credit for. So I hope he wins. Moving on. Here we go. We have the great one. We got Jim Miller taking on Nicholas Mota. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm gonna bet Jim Miller. I'm just kind of deciding how much do I really want to sweat out Jim Miller's gas tank past round one, and like where do I want? How much of my funds do I want to allocate towards round one, and how much on the money line? But you know, this fight was booked like a few months back, and Miller was like minus 130, I think, and now he's like plus 150. It doesn't make much sense. And watching Nick Moda's tape, I do think he's the kind of guy that, you know, if you put him in the right matchups where a guy's going to enter the pocket and just swing with him, he's going to fare fairly well because he does hit hard and like he will extend combinations in the pocket, even though, you know, the combinations he extends are largely just winging like, you know, big hooks at guys. But he seems fairly accurate with them, and I'll give him credit for that. But other than that, though, I don't think he does much well. You know, if you don't stand in front of him in the pocket, he doesn't really throw any output at distance. He'll pump the occasional jab, but not much else. When you can throw, like when you throw at him, he doesn't move his head much. He's very easy to hit. There's not a ton of grappling tape out there on him, but what I've seen hasn't looked good, to be honest. And from what I've heard, I can't find it. Guys, if you're listening and you have the Selecki tape of him, please send it to me. But like Gugabe told me that he's seen that fight and that Selecki basically just dominated him for 2 rounds and then just walked into a right hook early in round 3, which kind of lines up with the rest of the data that we have on Moda's grappling. It just doesn't seem very good. And I'm not even sure he's particularly durable. You know, we've seen him put out cold before. We've seen him hurt before. And so then you have Jim Miller, who's been fighting. Look, I get it. He was briefly stunned by Eric Gonzalez in the first round of his last fight. But other than that, that fight was an absolute shit kicking for the other, you know, 5.5 minutes that fight went on. Like, that wasn't like, you know, Eric Gonzalez almost beat him, you know? And Miller has been fighting, other than that fight, nothing but really good fighters for years and doing fairly well in those fights. You know, I look at it like I think Miller is the much better fighter everywhere here. Even striking, you know, Miller actually does a good job getting in and out of the pocket. You know, he gets a good job at covering up when he goes in with the left. He does a decent job countering. He's got a decent kicking game. You know, I kind of think for as long as he's got gas, he should be fine on the feet with him. And I actually think there is some equity for him finishing on the feet here. And not just because of the last fight. He's hurt a lot of guys standing. It just usually just chokes them out after. But yeah, I mean, I think Miller wins round 1 at a remarkably high clip in this fight. It's really just a question of can his gas hold up over 3? And I don't really know what the answer is. You know, the obvious answer is no. But then you watch the fight with Pichel, and like I was on Pichel big in that fight. And round 3, you know, if he doesn't fall off Pichel's back with 90 seconds to go, he probably wins the fight by decision. Like honestly, you know, it was a pretty close competitive round 3. I still don't really trust his gas tank, but if you look at that fight and the Holtzman fight, he really got gassed out from grappling. And Holtzman in particular in round 2 just started going after the clinch hard and really just started wearing on him. Moda's not going to do that. Like I do think there are scenarios where Moda just gives him a low volume outside kickboxing match where he can outpoint him fairly easily without taxing himself too much. Now, do I trust Jim with that? No, I think Jim's probably going to do what Jim does and shoot a takedown at some point and go hard for the submission. And he may find it. I just the cardio is enough that I can't go big on Miller here just because, you know, it's like if I'm sitting with a big bet on him and he's there breathing heavy, looking like a zombie in round 2, I'm going to want to kill myself. But I cannot not bet Jim Miller, you know, plus 150 against this dude. I'm going to have a bet on him. It's probably going to be small on the money line and probably a bit smaller sprinkled on the round 1. But I think Miller's the clear side here. Luke, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, pass for me. I can't really disagree with a lot of what you said, but it's like his decision equity historically is just so bad. Like it's a guy who's going to go ahead and throw a lot of strikes at him. You know, I just don't give an overt amount of credence there, but at the same time, I still don't overtly like what I've seen from Mata at the same time. And with that like Selecki fight kind of question mark, we have gotten like transcribed kind of what has happened there. He did survive the ground with Joe Selecki, so I do think that is pretty impressive. Nonetheless, Miller's probably down to fall off a cliff here at some point. Am I trying to lay, Mata at favorite money? No. Do I think Miller's probably the side if I was to bet it gun to my head? Yes, but Miller just winning extended types of exchanges is so limited over recent years. So it's just a massive pass for me. It's a fight I'd rather look to live bet.
Yeah, that's fair. Lags, how about you?
I got a small play here on the under 2.5 rounds at plus 103. I think similar like you touched on. I think Jim's live that first 7.5 minutes. I think he's got a decent chance to choke this guy out early. But like again, like you touched on, the cardio is just such a huge liability for Jim that it's just hard to trust him. So I think Mata's live to put him out late. I think Jim's live to finish him early. I think it should be a fun fight for as long as it lasts.
Yeah, and like if Mota is gonna win the fight, right? Presumably, if Miller's gas and Mota's gonna take over, he's gonna do damage, right? He's not,
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna point fight Miller, even if Miller is tired. He's gonna come in there and try to hurt him. So I don't hate that. I don't think that's bad, to be honest. It might actually be better than what I'm looking at. What's the number you got?
I got plus 103, but I think now it's like evens, like minus 115.
Still not bad, to be honest. 2.5, you said?
Yeah.
That's not bad. Yeah, I might look at that. But War Miller, one more time into the breach with him. Didn't work out with Roxy last week. Maybe it'll work out with Jim this week. Moving on. Got Parker Porter, Alan Badeau. Lags, any thoughts here?
Not strong takes here again, really. Like, I mean, am I laying Parker Porter minus 280 now that it is? No. I don't know. To be honest with you, I would look like at all the lines here for this fight. Like, I think Badeau's hot garbage, to be honest. I think Porter pretty much can handle him wherever this fight goes. I think he can take him down, smash him. I like the over 1.5. Obviously, not trying to lay the juice there on it at minus 150, but I think Luke touched on it earlier. We were messaging before. Parker Porter ITD is still plus money. That's not a bad look if you like him in the spot, but really for me, it's just a pass.
Yeah, that ITD at plus money is honestly fairly interesting, to be honest. I'll be honest. Like looking at the fight, I kind of think that Porter is almost certainly the side, to be completely honest. Like even at minus 250, like am I gonna lay Parker Porter at minus 250? No. But like just thinking about how the fight could play out, like can I really give Alan Badeau more than like a 20% chance, 15-20% chance to finish? Like I really don't think so. And we've seen Porter carry serious output in 2 rounds 2 and 3. Whereas Badeau falls off a cliff after 4 minutes. Plus, the grappling equity on the Porter side of things is absurd here. Like, I'm looking at Porter submission plus 600 right now, which also seems completely ludicrous to me. Like, what the fuck is that line? But yeah, I mean, look, Badeau, I guess, he looked good early against Nascimento, and Porter is a little poor defensively, but I actually kind of think Porter is somewhat durable. What's his face? Chase Sherman is not a small hitter, and Porter survived the early exchanges. They're fine. Dawkins is a huge hitter. I don't think Badeau is on that level as a hitter. And so, I don't know. I mean, Badeau could get him out of there early. I think that's in play. I don't think it's that in play, though. I do sort of think Porter's a side, even at juice. Again, I don't think I'm going to bet it, but I do think that. I think live bet on Porter is good. I think ITD is probably pretty good. I think submission, like I'm just looking at this for the first time, submission plus 600 is outrageous to me. Luke, what about you?
That's actually my sneaky take for this fight. I think Porter subs him, to be completely honest. But my official bet, I actually haven't made anything yet just because books have been so slow with props. But I love Porter ITD at plus money this week. To your point, Badeau has shown nothing outside of the first round in his entire career, essentially, outside of like going back to like 5 years when he beat some bum in Japan in like the 5th round or something like that. But historically, he's got nothing after 5 minutes. He's going to throw the kitchen sink, let it go. but his defense sucks. In fact, he's a guy who used to fight at 205. He's up at heavyweight. Some people might think, oh, that's great. He's going to have speed advantage. Just like, no, he's still just sloppy as shit. His defense sucks. like in fact, now he's just getting hit by bigger. Now he's getting hit by bigger hitters. So that's like what my takeaway is. To your point, Porter's more consistent. I know he hasn't finished, in the UFC to date, but at the same time, it's like when you got a guy who's going to gas after, to your point, 4 to 5 minutes, who has nothing left on the ground. We saw that at one point already, who actually, I should say 2 points. If you go back to its regional days when he fought that dude in TKO, he got subbed by a dude who's never subbed anybody, who's a kickboxer in the 3rd round, turtled over and got subbed. It's all fucked up on Tapology. It's quoted as a win for Baudot, but he actually got subbed. So there's your context there. But the guy's got nothing after 5 minutes. So yeah, he's big. He's going to throw some heavy stuff. He did some good stuff early against Nascimento, but it's like that's like the guy's shining moment at the end of the day. He's going to throw something early. So it's like, what is his general win equity outside of round 1? Because I haven't seen a rational argument outside of it, because there just really isn't any. You say, okay, Porter hasn't finished, and that's fine. All right, let's say Porter just gets bombed on. Same thing happened in the Josh Parisian fight. He didn't finish Josh Parisian, but the difference is that this dude should be able to take Baudot down and finish him, sub him, knock him out, pawn him out either way. So Porter ITD at plus money is solely a product of recency bias in what has happened historically, with zero matchup context, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think Porter ITD should be like minus 150, to be honest with you. Like,
That's what I capped at.
That seems like reasonable, right? Baudot is so bad, man. It's like it's like horrible, like legitimately terrible. But yeah, see, I'm gonna look at that stuff, though. I think you have to, just for.
I mean, by the way, FanDuel has it up at plus 700 right now.
Jesus Christ, I'm gonna bet that. So that'll be fun. Yeah. Maybe
by the way, they also have the sub round combos up too. They have Porter by sub in round 2 or 3 at plus 1,600.
Woo!
That is the life. That is
getting the G-Gen stuff fired up here, Lex.
Kyler Phillips last weekend, Parker Porter this weekend. I mean, that would be nice. Maybe we even go a half unit on it. I don't know. Let's see where it takes us. Things get wild. Moving on. We got a really weird fight here. We got Kyle Daukaus, Jamie Pickett, Lags. I think you have a fight here, right? Or don't you?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah, actually, one of our buddies, Oz Tyler, pointed this out a couple of days ago. They have Kyle Daukaus on FanDuel by sub or decision at minus 165, and I think that's a hell of a line. Obviously, I do think that he is the better boxer here, but I think the clear path is taking Jamie Pickett down. He's a horrible grappler. I just don't think that the finish is super live, in the sense that, like, would I lay the minus 260, minus 270 straight here? Not entirely, but I do like the minus 165 if you're giving me sub and decision.
Yeah, I don't hate that. It's kind of weird. I don't think there's a fighter I've 180 on more times in their first 4 fights in their UFC career than like Kyle Daukaus. Like, obviously, I bet him against Brendan Allen, and I thought fairly highly of him, but I haven't really liked what I've seen since. I think I parlayed him against Goldsmith, which was a fight that he won. But my issue with Daukaus is, like, the guy is, when he lets his hands go, he's at least a potent offensive striker. He doesn't have much defense, and he tends to just do the exact same thing his opponent here does, Jamie Pickett. He'll get off a couple strikes and then bomb into the clinch. The problem for me, obviously, Daukaus is a fairly educated submission grappler from top position, but he's not a very good wrestler. Like, you rewatch, I get it. Kevin Holland was training wrestling, blah, 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 blah. Kevin Holland's a bad wrestler. And, like, you watch that last fight, and he was having a lot of trouble getting Kevin Holland down on the mat, you know? And so, like, I kind of think – I think technically they're on a similar level. The problem is, you know, if Pickett was a more busy fighter, I'd have some interest in him as a big dog. But, like, if they stand at range, Daukaus is just going to throw a lot more strikes than him and probably land a bit harder. I kind of think what's likely to happen here is it's going to be a messy fight in the clinch. Which obviously that's why I thought I was going to love Daukaus here, but that's why I don't like him. I'm not betting Jamie Pickett, to be clear. But, like, I do have some worries about, you know, that kind of fight can be weird optically for judges. And God forbid Daukaus ends up on bottom. I think he's almost as likely as Pickett is to be held down. You know, I actually did a deep dive on Daukaus tape, and he doesn't really have any technical getup other than throwing up subs. Now that may be enough here because he is a better grappler than Pickett, but it's just a place that I'm not really trying to stake my money. What I do think is kind of interesting, it's a little bit of a bummer because it opened up at plus money, which is absurd. But the over 2.5 is like minus 160. And like, yeah, Dawkins could sub Pickett. That's in play, but I kind of think he's not going to get many takedowns. He's not going to have many opportunities at it. I kind of think this should be closer to like 70% to go the distance here, but I haven't played anything yet. I'm still thinking about it. Luke,
John,
what do you think? Yeah.
Real quick, actually, they have FanDuel has the goes the distance minus 130.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bet that. I'm going to play that. Luke, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I was to play anything, I would just play anti-violence, to be honest. I think Pickett is nothing special, but I think he's competent enough to probably not get subbed by Dawkins. And at the end of the day, he has fought two guys who hit reasonably hard in Soriano and Chukwi, who could not finish him, who also hit him with a shitload of strikes. Yeah. So I do think, to your point, John, I think Dawkins is the more active party here, and that's the problem I've had with Pickett is just his inconsistent striking. So I think Dawkins is going to be the guy going forward doing more here. I think he can land takedowns. I'm not going to say he's going to wash a guy like Pickett on the ground, but I do think he can get at least one or two. He's going to be the more busy party. Same time, I'm not trying to lay 260 on Dawkins at all, but I do think he's going to just be the more active guy at the same time. So I'm looking more to anti-violence here, but I think that's just gotten smoked over the last couple of days. I think we're sitting like 2.5 at like 250 now. So
GTD, no, it's come back in. GTD, the guys just said it's minus 130 at FanDuel. I'm seeing 120 at Bet365 right now.
It came in that much?
Yeah, 135 at DraftKings. Yeah, 148. Yeah.
All right. I rescind my argument. I might be getting involved on that. So.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it's going to be an ugly fight. I think this is a horrific decision to put this on the co-main event, to be honest with you. Fucking put Jim Miller there, man. The guy's got like 50 fights. He's a fucking legend, you know?
Like this,
Buckley and now Hassan. At least those guys know each other.
Like this has a 70% chance that it's going to be just an ugly ass, just gross fight.
It's a horrible decision for a fucking co-main.
Like there's any number. Like Miller would work there. Buckley, Hassan, even Pierce Rodriguez. You feature
Benitez you could throw up there.
Yeah, like there's a lot of fight. Hell, I would rather watch Diana. I'm more looking forward to Diana Babitsa and Gloria DePaula than I am this fight. To be honest with you.
Gotta love that.
But moving on, we got the main event. It was not originally the main event. Sadly, we lost RDA and Abdul. But we have Jamal Hill and Johnny Walker, which, depending on how Johnny Walker decides to show up, if it's the Johnny Walker who's the crazy man or the neutered dog that we saw against Thiago Santos, it could be either an amazingly entertaining fight for as long as it lasts or just awful. But I haven't bet here. I bet Johnny Walker. Very small. I'm about as anti-Johnny Walker throughout his career as anybody you'll ever meet. But I got him at plus 225. Honestly, like, I like Jamal Hill, like parts of his game. He's a high output light heavyweight. He's a good boxer. You don't see that very often. He has reasonable power. He's a guy generally who I think if I had more data on his ground game, I'd be interested in backing in spots. But here, it's like I do think there are some poor defensive tendencies from Hill in the pocket. The problem is he manages distance very well, and he's bigger than most of the guys he fights. So actually getting there and landing headshots on him has been classically pretty hard, and he hasn't yet fought a real grappler outside of Craig who submitted him, or really a kind of like guy who's as big as him or as athletic as he is. And he's getting both of those things here. You know, Johnny Walker, whatever you want to say about him, look, he has no process to his game whatsoever. He's chinny as fuck, but he hits like a fucking brick shithouse, man. Like, dude, the guy has a 6.5% knockdown rate. That's like Francis Ngannou level knockdown rate. It's fucking absurd. And I get it. It's mostly not with his hands. It's doing weird dynamic stuff. But, like, you can't just say, oh, it's weird dynamic stuff, so there's no chance it happens, right? Like, if he comes out like a bat out of hell here and tries to take his head off, yes, he might die. And, yes, if they swing to death, I favor Jamal Hill to win that fight. But I don't favor him. I certainly don't favor him at a 75% clip to win that fight. You know, Walker is a huge hitter. We don't know much about Hill's chin, but we know it can be hit. And I kind of think Walker's inherent finishing ability makes it almost impossible to cap him unless you're like an elite wrestler or someone who's going to proactively grapple him like Krylov did, it's almost impossible to make him below like 35% in any spot. And on top of that, even if we got like, I know it was a horrible fight, and look, you have to favor Hill dramatically on minutes just based on historical output, but like Johnny Walker did win 2 rounds off Thiago Santos. It was 3-2 on all 3 cards. And he does throw leg kicks, and it's something we haven't really seen Hill deal with somebody who's a proactive kicker yet, which I think is an interesting thing. And so if Walker decides that he's going to be very conservative, is Hill going to be aggressive? Because if he does, then he's going to bring the fight out of Walker that I want anyway, right? And if he is conservative and we get another staring match, then can he really be minus 300? And I do think if anybody has any grappling equity here, it's Johnny Walker. Like, I don't think he's a good grappler, but the reality is he reversed Nikita Krylov on the mat. He got about 3.5 minutes of control against Krylov, who is a pretty good grappler. Look, again, I don't think Walker's going to grapple him. I don't think he's going to win a decision. I'm not saying that, but I do think these are things that are worth keeping in mind when you're trying to cap the fight and saying Jamal Hill should be minus 300 here. I think that's crazy to me. Yeah, look, I mean, I like Jamal Hill. I think he's probably going to knock Walker out pretty early in this fight, but I just think there's value in Walker. I have a half unit poke on him. It's nothing serious, but I kind of, you're throwing a plus 225 to me on Johnny Walker in a stand-up fight. I have to take a bite. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you 100%. I think the line's honestly probably accurate. Once again, to your point, it's like, how does the guy fight? If he's going to fight crazy, is he going to maximize his traditional outcome? That's kind of where I have my issue based on the last fight. But the thing, even in the last fight with him fighting Santos, is that Hill's going to fucking throw. I know that at the end of the day, and I just think he has so much more equity, assuming we have an extended fight here over Johnny Walker, who his defense just hasn't leveled up. And I'm not willing to say his defense has leveled up based on the Santos fight, because it was just a non-committal fight between 2 guys in a 25-minute fight who landed less than 50 significant strikes between both of them. So I'm just not willing to say that. But going into it, I was actually very close to betting Walker, and then I taped it and I'm like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. If I'm going to do it, I'm betting the KO. In my opinion, I'm betting the KO. There's no evidence that he can win a decision over Hill, in my opinion, and it just comes down to how he's going to fight. But to your point, he is a very big guy. He's a very dynamic guy, and he can, based on that style, he can put out anybody, to be completely honest. But am I willing to, get invested in that? It's just, as like a hardcore bettor myself, I don't like the Johnny Walker archetypes. I hate it. I absolutely hate it to my core, in terms of something that I am going to bet on. So it's a pass for me. I respect the pokes. Like I said, I was considering it myself originally, but I just think there's more equity to Jamal Hill.
Well, tell me you.
All right, before we break down, before I give my opinion of it, to continue Luke's point of I hate the Johnny Walker type fights. I was so glad last weekend that Ty finally knocked out Derek Lewis, and we finally get the end of that. That was so nice. That was great.
Well, I DJ bet Derek Lewis right at the Horde, so I was a little less worried about that.
I'm sorry, John.
Insert coffin dance gifts. Insert Luke and Luke's coffin dance gifts.
Yeah, I had to under 1.5, so that ended up being nice. But beside the point. Yeah, I would say similar to what Luke was saying there. I guess why I would opt for the KO if I was looking for Johnny's side, not to shit on the money, but I think that plus I was looking at it on FanDuel, plus 340 for him by KO, and then him in the first 3 rounds by KO, they have him at plus 440. But I have an alternate under here. I'm actually taking the under 2.5 rounds at minus 175. I have 2 units on that, and I think Hill's going to be able to touch him early and often, and I think Walker, like you said, is dynamic and explosive enough that he's going to maximize his win condition, hopefully. And if not, Hill's going to just put him out anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say you better insert the hopefully after the last time. I think we both had the alternate doesn't start round 4 in that fight.
Which, to be honest with you, even where it's sitting now on FanDuel for this fight that doesn't start round 4 is sitting at minus 190, and I still think that's value.
It might be.
It might be.
You know what's so frustrating though? Like, I was pretty sure I knew what Walker was, like, very early in his career. I bet Khalil against him. I bet Ledet against him. I bet Serkunov against him. I finally got it with Anderson, and now I'm here fucking betting him. It's
I bet the Ledet one as well. I bet
like, could you imagine if this fight was made? Someone said this in Discord the other day, but could you imagine if this fight was made like before Hill went on this run, or like after Hill beat OSP, but after Walker and a KO'd like 3 guys in under a minute? You'd probably have like plus 250 here. Like Corey Anderson was plus 200 against Johnny Walker. Like, what the fuck? You know? People forget that there were actual Twitter takes that Johnny Walker was going to beat John Jones. Like that was a real thing that was happening.
That's what we talked about earlier tonight, John. It's flippy floppy.
Yeah, you're 100%. As you guys can see, I'm super bullish on Johnny Walker. But I did bet him here. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. We're gonna do the show again next week, and next week we have probably my main event of the year. Honestly, we got Bobby Green, we got Islam Makhachev.
Bobby, baby.
King Bobby is gonna hopefully bring the crown home one more time.
And he's cashing a plus 600.
Dude, maybe we catch 3 or 4 units on a plus 600. How would that be?
I'm gonna get out the podcast and bet Islam.
I gotta tape the fight. I'm so hyped up for it. I'll probably tape it tonight. I don't know, just because. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out. As usual, you got me, John, and Emily Fox, Luke at SWR_betting, Lags at Danny_Lags. Come back out next week, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Please drop a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. And thanks for stopping by. Good luck, everybody.